I've got Barry Auchettl, the founder of Conversations. Barry, please can you tell us a little bit about Conversations?
Thanks, Tony. Conversations actually began to me in a dream. I literally had a dream one night where I went to bed really frustrated, thinking, what am I meant to do with my life? And I actually dreamt this board game called Conversations. And what actually happened is over the next 3 days, I put this board game together and it just changed the way I actually communicate now, particularly with my family and then with the friends who played it and then with everyone who's actually come in touch with it since.
And Barry, tell me, is one of the key benefits building relationships?
The number one benefit I see with this game is not only about building relationships, but actually sustaining and holding those relationships and taking our relationships to a new level. And the key word here that I would always use in this case is it creates a real sense of oneness and connection with every person who plays the game.
Wow, that's great. Tell us a little bit more about the successes you've had with organisations and communities.
Look, Tony, the game gets played for families, but it's also being used in workplace and it's also being used in groups such as church groups, etc. And the key thing that I found in church groups and in workplaces, what it does, it helps to draw out who are the real leaders in that organisation. Because the real leaders may not necessarily be those with the title, but a lot of times it's the ones that people go to in order to get advice or direction. So it helps to develop that. It helps to develop trust amongst all those people in the organisation, and in turn it creates an environment which is a far friendlier environment.
For the actual individual, what would the key benefits you would see for an individual?
For an individual, I see that there are 3 key benefits. The first one is that people learn to communicate and really communicate from the heart. And for some people, that's actually learning to speak. You know, the people who are really quiet, and they're my favourite ones because they tend to say something like, I don't know what I'm going to say, but if I had to say something, and they just come out with these gems. And they look surprised as much as everyone else. And it just gives them the opportunity to speak from an I statement without anyone interrupting. The other side of it is the people who talk a lot. And what they actually have to learn in the game is not to talk as much. And I've actually had people come up to me and thank me at the end of the game because they found out they didn't have to talk, but they thought that they had to talk all the time and fill up all those sort of empty spaces. So it balances out the situation and enable people to speak. That's the first one. The second thing that it does is enable people to actively listen to each other. And the way it does that is applying what people say to themselves. So for me, when anyone else is speaking, I'll always sit there and say, I can relate to that, and I can relate to that aspect, and I may not even relate to that all that much, but there is maybe it's the opposite. Maybe I don't relate to it at all. But I'm applying what's being said to myself. And so as a result of those 2 aspects, there's this connection as we engage with each other that occurs at the end of the game that creates a gathering, if you like, of people who are like-minded.
Briefly tell us how the game works.
Tony, the game works in 3 cycles and it builds upon each other. The first cycle is we use what's called an aspect card. And an aspect card could be something like career, health, money, even spirituality. So it really covers the whole spectrum. And we just look at where is our life from this particular aspect. And each person will look at it from their aspect. And at the end of the first round, what we do is we actually also compare our aspect to the others and see that interrelationship. Because this is a bit like Relationships 101. We're starting to relearn how to build relationships and communicate with each other.
Wow, that's great. And if you wanted to join, what would you have to do?
I'll just go back to the second component of that
Right.
game. The second part of the game is that we move on to what's called the life card. And the life card I nearly called the drama card. And these things like poor me or someone else's fault, all those sorts of statements. And they came relatively easy to me to put together. And so what we do is we look at those dramas, not from our whole life, but just from our aspect. And it seems to be able to narrow exactly what's going on with that aspect. And then the third part that we do, which is the inspirational part of the game, are actually called inspirational cards. And we step out of the dramas of life and see life for what it really is. So an example of that might be a card that says, there is nothing but hope in your life. And so I just find that combination, as people step through that process, seems to clear away some of the old stories and some of the old blocks in people's lives, but more importantly, enables people to discover something about themselves and then discover about something about every person playing.
Very good. And how does the actual group work, the group dynamics? Have you found that it welds people together or unifies? How does it actually work, the group?
Unification's a great word, because we can have people who don't know each other who, at the end of the night, exchanging phone numbers and addresses and catching up still and continuing the conversation. So that's wonderful. The other side of it that I find really handy is really close family and friends. And one of the things that I notice, and particularly with really close family and friends, when we first meet, everything's exciting. We're talking about this and we're talking about that, and it's all new and it's all fresh. And then after a while, those relationships can sort of plateau a little bit. And we don't seem to get past, maybe talking about what the children are doing or what's happening at work, or we just lose that flavour that sparked that relationship in the first place. And what this game does is reinvigorate those relationships and bring those relationships, whether it's your most significant other or whether it's your really close friends or whether it's your family, and brings that up to a whole new level.
Can it be used in organisations and workplaces?
Look, definitely, Tony. Look, workplaces have used it. They've used it for the whole idea of building trust amongst employees. It's used it for building relationships so that people are communicating with each other, really from a much more authentic space than from what's in it for me process. The result of that is we create a workplace which is based on collaboration rather than competition.
Oh, wow. And how do I join?
Look, there's a number of ways to join. The first way is through conversationsthegame.com.au. Go to have a look at the website, have a look around, see what interests you. It could be about playing the game for yourself. It could be about introducing the game into your workplace. It could be about becoming a facilitator. Or it could be about finding out about conversations online, which is going to bring these conversations to a global network.
Thank you, Barry. That was beautiful.
Thanks, Tony.